Hello and welcome to the SRA podcast. On July 25th, a group of YouTube and Twitch streamers organized a fundraising stream in cooperation with Antifa International to support anti-fascist prisoners around the world, specifically 11 prisoners from the United States, Spain, and Russia. The stream raised over $2,500 and featured interviews with a number of socialist, anarchist, and anti-fascist figures. Today's podcast is an excerpt from my segment on the stream. While the fundraiser is over, you can still write to these prisoners to offer your support, and I'd highly encourage you to do so, especially if you can write in Spanish or Russian. The 11 prisoners the stream supported are David Campbell from New York, Gage Halapowski from Portland, Rodrigo Lanza, born in Chile but currently in jail in Spain, and 8 Russian prisoners, Andrei Chernov, Ilya Sikursky, Yuli Boyarshinov, Mikhail Kulkov, Maxim Ivankin, Viktor Filinov, Vasily Kuksov, and Dmitry Pchelintsev. I apologize if I butchered any of those names, and I'll include links to where you can contact them in the episode description. With all of that out of the way, here's the stream.
Now we are going to bring on Faye from I keep wanting to say Antifa now, from Socialist Rifle Association. How are you doing?
Hi Al, I'm doing good. How are you?
Okay. And I don't remember if I actually asked. Can I ask your pronouns? I think I forgot to get
Sure.
that.
My pronouns are she and her.
Okay, great. And we're also going to bring on Aaron from Re-Education, or at least the disembodied voice of Aaron from Re-Education.
Hey everybody, yeah. Sorry, I don't have my camera just will not work today, so just bear with me, I guess.
But if you're having a bad hair day, you can just admit it. You don't have to be on camera.
It is really bad sometimes. It's like basically spiked up all over the place. I don't know what to do.
There is one thing you can do that makes it a lot easier.
Ooh, I don't know if I could handle that much masculinity all at once. Very cool.
Wow, this is a great little we've had quite a cast on today that keeps on going right now. We've got where's my hand at? There we go. Walter from Antifa International. We've got Aaron from Re-Education, and we've got Faye with the Socialist Rifle Association. Quite a cast. Yeah. This has been a great stream so far, and we've still got 3 hours left. Aaron, did we lose you?
Oh no, I didn't say anything. Is my microphone like picking up some feedback or something? Or
maybe it might have. Okay, that might have been it. All right. So hey Faye, with the Socialist Rifle Association, I thought the left hates guns.
I know, and that's what everyone's been telling me, but here I am. I mean, yeah. So. I'm a co-founder, former vice president of the Socialist Rifle Association. I'm not a member of leadership anymore. I stepped down due to burnout on June 1st. But I'm here speaking today as a member and as a co-founder from sort of my perspective on, why we should maybe be armed while feds are snatching people off the streets. No
kidding.
That's a wonderful reason to be out there. I really commend you a lot, and I appreciate all of the hard work that everybody at the SRA has been doing. Absolutely fantastic job. And right now, I think that something like this is needed more than ever.
Yeah, I wish we'd started 10 years ago. It's a lot of work to catch up.
For sure. Yeah. Faye, can I ask you a question? What came first for you, socialism or guns?
For me, guns. I started shooting when I was 13 years old.
Wow.
I didn't become a leftist until I was maybe 23, 24-ish. So, yeah, been shooting for a long time, a lot of hours on the range, a lot of different guns,
really?
Historical and modern. So
nice. Oh, cool. So, I think there's a general feeling that gun culture tends to be default right culture. And
it very much is. The Socialist Rifle Association. So one of the first things to get out there is that the SRA, we often get people joining the SRA who think that it's like a militia organization, like we're going to train people in like squad tactics and room clearing, and that we're going to go out and have like formations on the street. That's not really what it is. It's an education and advocacy organization, as well as we do a lot of mutual aid work. But one of the core goals of the SRA is to create a healthier, left-wing, inclusive gun culture that's opposed to the sort of hyper-reactionary right-wing gun culture that dominates, that just dominates American gun culture.
Right.
You look at the NRA, you look at militia groups and militia culture, you look at all of this, and it's a hellscape.
Yeah. So playing off the the joke intro that I was giving, the joke intro question. So yeah, for anyone who's not firmly on the left or firmly anti-fascist in the chat, which I welcome. That's why this is all public, to help dispel myths and
absolutely
give out preach understanding. So yeah, for any like libs, any liberals who are thinking, well, isn't that the whole the left agenda is gun control and taking away guns, or highly regulating guns?
I would say that gun control is a firmly centrist political position, because the sort of essence of centrist politics is the belief that current political structures and current institutions are valid and correct, essentially, in how they approach the world of politics, that there's legitimacy to these institutions. And so when you're a centrist, it's very easy to look at, well, we don't need people with guns because they can rely on the police to protect them. But what we've seen through the proliferation of smartphones, what white people have seen and what Black people have known for decades, is that the police are not a neutral institution, and that they do have a political bias. They do have a class function in enforcing poverty and enforcing, oppression of the working class. And because of that, a lot of people really cannot rely on police for protection because the police are not there to protect you. In fact, the Supreme Court has ruled that the police motto of protect and serve is not legally binding. Police have no obligation to protect the public.
They have no obligation to protect the public, and they have no accountability if they screw up and violate your rights by thinking that it's the law when they're wrong. So they're protected the whole way.
Police unions, all of that. There's no accountability for police, and the police have political biases in their police duty. They have racial bias. They have bias against queer people, and so there's a lot of people who can't rely on the police for protection. And when you are opposing fascism, which is not just explicit neo-Nazi groups, but is in fact the direction that our entire government and that many governments around the world are trending currently. When you're opposing that, the police, as the institution of the state becomes more and more controlled by fascist powers, as it becomes more authoritarian, trending towards a totalitarian system, you're going to run into the case where police and explicitly fascist and semi-fascist groups openly work together to crush any sort of leftward movement. So my argument is basically that, when you support gun control, unless you are also arguing for all of the police to be disarmed and all of the military to be disarmed, if you support gun control on civilians, you are defending the status quo, and that is a centrist position, and is ignoring the fact that these institutions are trending rightward. So I see the Democrats as a center right-wing party, and I am, of course, far, far, far to the left of the Democrats.
Absolutely. I agree. There's a great image I want to show that goes exactly what you just said. But before we do that, I want to say thank you to Irish Pollock, who donated again. He's donated multiple times, $25.22, which puts us exactly at our $2,500 goal.
Hey,
thank you.
Very nice.
Very awesome.
Fantastic.
If I could just mention. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to read off they left a message, which is great. Under no pretext should arms and ammunition be surrendered, and any attempt to disarm the workers must be frustrated by force if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mark.
Classic. Yep.
Something, Faye, that you mentioned that I think is really important is that these groups, the police, the law enforcement, and that sort of thing, specifically in America, really was birthed out of a fascist movement in the first place, or at least a very racist one, where most people know that they came out of old-fashioned slave patrols and a lot of things like that. So a lot of the things that the police have done, and a lot of the gearing towards disarming the population and fully arming the state, I think really plays into the way that this has always played out throughout history. Now, when we have all of these protests with BLM and that sort of thing, it very much mirrors what was going on in the 1960s and stuff like that. What do you think about I actually had a couple of questions here. I just wanted to know, what do you think about when people try to relate gun control and gun crime and that sort of thing to mental health?
The intersection of gun crime and mental health is at the problem of suicide. Suicides account for the vast majority of firearm deaths in the United States, followed by accidents and homicides. If you're talking about mental health in the context of gun control, then you should be talking about providing mental health to lower the suicide rate. Typically, what you hear, though, is the mental health line being trotted out after a mass shooting or something. And very often, the people who commit mass shootings are not mentally ill, or the mental illness that they have is not the primary reason for them committing that atrocity. And so in that case, it's often ideologically driven, or just nihilistically antisocial, or attention seeking even, considering the media circus that often occurs around these events. So I see when mental health is brought up after those sorts of events, I very much see it as like a red herring, as something to draw attention away from the real problem, which is, I think a lot of it comes down to, the mass shootings, a lot of it comes down to alienation, making people, and economic issues making people vulnerable to radicalization. And if someone is radicalized by the far right, or by, sort of nihilistic antisocial movements, then that, the sort of analogy I make is that American mass shootings are sort of our equivalent to car bombs in Europe or the Middle East. It's the tool used to carry out the terror attack is not really the problem so much as the ideology that leads someone to commit that attack.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the other thing too that I would just like to mention on the side of mental health is that I noticed, like you're saying, it is very much used as a red herring, and almost as though whenever some sort of thing comes up about guns, we need to take care of people with mental health. They should be banned from having guns. That's the thing that you hear a lot. People that have mental health issues.
As someone with quote unquote mental health issues that is neurodivergent, I can tell you, I probably would be completely. I'm positive my parents would completely disown me and put me right out on the street. And again, because neurodivergent, unemployed. If I owned a firearm, I am absolutely positive, and my grad school wouldn't allow me to dorm there. So,
wow.
Because I'm neurodivergent, and apparently, if I own a gun, I'm suicidal.
People trot that same logic against transgender people because of our suicide rates, and it's usually made either disingenuously or to specifically attack trans people. And it's so one of the things that I've tried to promote through the SRA as a way to reduce the likelihood of someone committing suicide, especially someone who is leftist or a minority who maybe deals with these issues more. The big problem with firearms that leads to so many firearm suicides is that it's so easy and readily available. If you have the gun and you have the ammunition, it's very easy to do. So the best way to prevent suicides when you own a gun is, most people, a suicide attempt is not a spontaneous thing. Usually there's a history of ideation or specific economic or social circumstances that lead someone to reaching that point before they actually attempt. What we recommend to members of the SRA is that if you if you have suicidal ideation, if you are beginning to have suicidal ideation due to your circumstances, and you own a firearm, we recommend disassembling that firearm and providing a key component such as a slide or barrel or the upper receiver of an AR-15. And you give that to a friend or family member that you trust to hold on to that for you until you no longer have those thoughts. Or alternatively, if you have ideation frequently, you can own, for instance, you can have the AR-15 lower and keep that, and your friend can just bring the upper to the range and only assemble the gun when you're in a range environment, prepared, getting ready to shoot it. So
What?
I think that that's a great way to sort of reduce the immediate availability to reduce suicide rates.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. On the idea of so to move it along, I guess is a better way to say it. So to move it towards kind of the biggest reason why I wanted to have the SRA on is with recent events have been making it exponentially growing the obviousness, I guess is the noun of that, obviousness of the importance of putting in self-protection. What does that look like to you, doing self-defense or self-protection right now with guns? Because a lot of people think, well, that means just everyone wants to start a war and just start shooting everybody, which is not. And first of all, on this channel, we don't advocate shooting anyone or any form of violence because that would violate TOS. That being said, like what would that look like? What would you like to see as far as people arming themselves right now?
So I think the left is in a very delicate place at the moment. We're at this sort of stage of increasing authoritarianism and increasing alliance between the state and fascist groups. And that acceleration is occurring at different rates in different places, in different contexts. I do think that there is an issue of, you might call them adventurous or ultras, whatever your ideology would call those people who do have those sorts of accelerationist views. I think that the left needs to be very careful to make sure that those people don't attain institutional power within the left and don't, push this situation further than the left is prepared to deal with it. Like I said, I think something like the SRA should have started a decade ago in terms of educating people and training people and, getting people armed and competent with firearms. For what's going on now, I do believe in general that the left needs to have a militia movement to counter the militia movement of the far right. However, it's a rocky process. I don't know if anyone here has been following the events in Louisville today.
No, I've been on here with.
Right. So today there is a demonstration by a armed Black community defense group called the Not Fucking Around Coalition, or NFAC, and they were protesting the murder of Breonna Taylor by Louisville police, which was tied to a real estate scheme to gentrify their neighborhood. An extremely fucked up situation. So the Not Fucking Around Coalition, I do want to say that any support that you give to that organization should be critical support, because unfortunately the leadership of NFAC has made some very aberrant anti-Semitic remarks and has that sort of Black anti-Semitic ideology, Black nationalist, sort of descending from like the ideological strain of Farrakhan and all that, which is
Black supremacist.
Not explicitly, somewhat from the comments that I've heard, but in that ballpark. Which is unfortunate.
Because the NOI and the Black Panthers are very different things.
Yeah.
Because when you use the word Black nationalism, that means that it means different things than
depending on who's saying it.
It does,
yeah.
So it's the situation, and I don't know if all the rank and file of the Not Fucking Around Coalition agrees with that ideology. They had over 100 people out today, and I don't know if they all share the views of that leadership but it is something to keep in mind when discussing them. That, critical support. They're better than the other people, some of the other people at that rally, but still, we should not be uncritically, acclaimed. But today they went out to demonstrate and protest, and they were opposed by a group of 3%er militias who showed up, led by, what was her name? I don't remember her name offhand, but she's a sort of infamous 3% organizer. And unfortunately, while the 3%ers, I criticized them on Twitter and called out some comments they were making, basically them fantasizing out loud about opening fire and murdering the Black protesters on the stream that I was watching. Unfortunately, the NFAC did not have a great showing either. Early in the event, one of their members had a negligent discharge with their rifle, injured themselves and 2 other people, and had to go to the hospital. The person apparently was carrying a lever action rifle, which those frequently do not have safeties. And if you carry them with a round in the chamber, then it's very easy to accidentally pull the trigger, or it may go off if dropped. So number one, don't bring a lever action rifle to your militia action. It's 2020, not 1920. Keep your finger off the trigger at all times, unless you are immediately prepared to fire, and keep your muzzle pointed at the ground so that if it does go off, it doesn't hurt anyone. So a major safety issue right off the back, and the group also had issues with organization. That said, it's a very new group, and I don't want to be overly critical of their organization, because for the number of people that they had out there with guns, in their sort of semi-official uniform, for the number of people that they had out there for I think their second event, I think it went relatively well. The negligent, disregarding the negligent discharge, but we do have this issue that there isn't a history of militant, militia activity on the left where people can, draw from those experiences, and so.
Well, not
since
the 1880s with the Chicago anarchists has there really been that.
Or
because
since the Black Panthers,
tradition.
or others. But.
Another thing too that I really appreciate is that you're saying that if you're going to, excuse me, that if you're going to support them, you have to have tepid support for them, because possibly some people in the leadership might be not exactly 100% perfect, and I appreciate that, because throughout history, whenever there's been any kind of revolutionary activity, a lot of times what ends up happening is that people that are less than perfect end up being the ones that jump into the fray at the very beginning, right? And though these people may not have 100% perfect ideas or opinions or anything like that, people need an outlet, right? They need to see people out there that are actually being armed, getting out, getting active, that sort of thing. And it's upsetting that that the leadership has a lot of those problems. And hopefully moving forward, a lot of those people that get brought in through that method can split off, make their own groups, or maybe form groups that are less controversial and that sort of thing. But I think this kind of thing usually does happen right at the beginning often.
Yeah, and I think the overall trend, the fact that this organization exists at all, is a good thing. Yeah. I just hope that that doesn't become the dominant steering ideology of the whole group, because I think that would be sort of tragic. But
yeah. And while we got a second, I want to say we got another donation of from Louis Saruth again with 1312. Nice. From it says Irish Polak stole my quotation, but this is great. Keep up the work, all. Thank you so much. So we have technically hit our goal. We are now 5 times over the original $500 goal. You know what? There's still 2.5 hours left before we end the stream. So should I push the goal up again? Say what? How about 28? We'll do it 28, and then we'll see where we go. Yeah. All right. So I'll work on changing that. We can continue talking. Just wanted to shout out that real quick.
Awesome.
If anybody in my audience is watching, please open up your hearts, open up your wallets, and give to this event, because it's very important that we help these people out.
Just realized the banner
Aaron,
wasn't
I'm
on.
part
Yeah.
of your audience.
There you go.
But yeah, streamlabs.com.
Senpai finally noticed me.
Streamlabs.com/softboys social club. You can see, you can type it from looking down there in the scrolling banner, or you can get it from looking at that. Just click the link. 100% of these donations, including the PayPal fees, will go directly to these 11 anti-fascist prisoners that we are supporting right now.
You know what, Luis Ruth? If gamifying charity and solidarity for anti-fascists who are incarcerated around the world, if that means that we succeed more if we have to gamify it, then I don't know about you, but gamify away, baby.
We should do a Wolfenstein stream.
Oh yeah.
No, like actually, I would. Wolfenstein 2: New Colossus is probably one of my favorite games of all time.
There we go.
There really is nothing better than just chainsawing a Nazi in half in a video game.
In a video game.
It literally is a video game.
Literally in a video game.
Yeah, that's why it's such a.
Just to jump back onto topic here, Faye, I had another question for you. So a lot of people that are on the left, they're just getting into a lot of this gun culture stuff, or at least getting into owning and possessing firearms. What would you suggest for them, people that are just first starting out? Would you, as far as what would you suggest to buy? What kind of sizes, recoils, that sort of thing? What is your opinion on that sort of thing?
Right. So this is a big question because there are a lot of different guns, and a lot of people have different requirements. And also, the market right now is very distorted because of all the panic buying. Some guns, which were a year ago were extremely cheap, are now extremely expensive and difficult to get. Some ammunition that has historically been extremely cheap is now extremely expensive and hard to get. I would say figure out what your use, like what is your use scenario? What do you plan to use that gun for? So if you're looking at, I would say that the major uses are training and recreation, which I lump together because it's building overall familiarity, home defense, concealed carry defense, and community defense, which is, militia or militia adjacent sort of activity. And so what I would recommend, if you're just starting out and you want something recreational or for training, just to build your fundamental skills, I would recommend a 22 caliber rifle or pistol, something like a Ruger 1022, various, a 22 revolver if you're starting with pistols maybe, or there are various other 22s. I don't want to get into all the individual makes and models because there's hundreds of them. But if you just want to learn the fundamentals and get into shooting as a hobby or a lifestyle, then I would recommend starting with the 22.
I love that. Oh, sorry. I was just going to agree with you. And I just wanted to make one quick point too before you carry on. I also believe that the Ruger 1022 is a very simple to use, right off the shelf, easy to understand weapon, and they're really a good gun if you're just starting out. So, and it helps you learn how to be accurate. It helps you learn sight control, sight picture, or trigger control, sight picture, that sort of thing. So super good. Sorry, carry on.
That's cool. I started on a Savage bolt action 22. So
what about like a more budget friendly option for those of us who I don't know necessarily where the funds would come from. So I'm just like curious.
For sure. So if we're still talking about 22s, pretty much every pawn shop in America you can walk into and they'll have a 22 caliber rifle up, behind the counter for anywhere from $80 to $150, and those are about the cheapest guns you can get. You'll find old Marlin 60. You'll find like pump action and lever action 22s. You'll find bolt action 22s in pawn shops all over America for around $100, and that's probably the cheapest gun that you can easily find. And they're not ideal for home defense or things like that, but they are better than not having a gun at all. I'd rather, people talk a lot of shit about 22s, saying that they're not that deadly, they're not that accurate, they're not that reliable. But if your choice is a Ruger 1022 or a baseball bat, I'd rather have the Ruger, And so going into home defense, so home defense is, a home defense weapon is something that you're going to keep, near your bed or, somewhere easily accessible in your home. A weapon that you're going to keep loaded, but in a safe condition. You might keep the chamber unloaded, or, keep the safety on and all that. And it's something to use in case of a home intruder or an altercation in the immediate vicinity of your home. And for that, the sort of the traditional recommendation is a 12-gauge shotgun. And that has a lot of merits. Shotguns are relatively easy to run and operate. However, there are a lot of myths around shotguns. People have this belief that a shotgun is, you don't have to aim it, you just fire and it's a room clear, because they play a video game, and that's how shotguns work in video games. At the distances inside a home, the shotgun spread of the buckshot is inside a home, it's going to be fist sized at most. You're not going to clear a room with a shotgun. So the main issue with shotguns is the recoil. Pump action shotguns can be a little bit difficult to operate. If you don't cycle them forcefully enough all the way back and all the way forward, you can get jams. So another recommendation would be an AR-15. So generally something, AR-15s have some issues of their own. They're a little bit more complicated to operate. There's more controls on an AR-15, but they are very controllable weapons. They are very, very ergonomic weapons, and they will do the job. The one thing I would not recommend for home defense, unless you have specific requirements for it, is a pistol. Pistols are actually very difficult to master. They're very difficult. It's very difficult to be accurate with a pistol under stress, because with a rifle or a shotgun, you have 3 points of contact. You have, your shoulder, your cheek, you have your hand, and you have your foregrip. So 3 or 4 points of contact. So you have a very stable, it's very easy to aim. Pistols, all you have are your hands. And so it's much more difficult. It takes a lot more training to be accurate with a pistol. So unless you're doing concealed carry, and then just happening to use that gun for home defense as well, if all you need is home defense, I don't think the pistol is usually not the correct choice.
Yeah. Can I jump in just one more time and say, absolutely, for home defense. The other thing too that you want to think about if you're in a home defense situation is also penetration, because if you fire off a round, there is a strong possibility your house is made up of drywall and little bits of wood and not much else. A bullet is going to be able to pass through walls really quite easily. There are a lot of demonstrations online that you can see exactly how effective bullets are passing through walls. You can check out Paul Harrell. He has a lot of interesting information about that. So it is something to really take into consideration. And that's why you really want to know what you're doing and practice at the range and everything like that as often as you can, to make sure that in those situations, you're not caught off guard. You're not going to be jumping into something that you don't know how to handle. And you don't have that response where you just point anywhere sort of deal. So sorry, carry on.
No, that's a very good thing to bring up. And I want to bring up some specific factors relating to over-penetration. You are legally responsible for everything that leaves the muzzle of your gun. Every shot that you fire, every projectile, you are legally responsible for. And if that bullet destroys someone's property, they can come after you for compensation. If you hit someone, if you miss if you have a home invader, you shoot them and you miss, and it hits someone in the next apartment or the next house, you are legally responsible for harming that person. And so, like you said, houses are made of drywall and sticks, and bullets will go through that quite a bit. One of the reasons that people recommend AR-15s for home defense is the ammunition they shoot, 5.56 millimeter. It's a very light bullet which travels very, very quickly, 2,800 to 3,000 feet per second. And because it's so light and traveling so fast, when it hits drywall, it starts to tumble through the air. And as it tumbles, it loses energy and becomes less lethal. Whereas shotgun pellets, buckshot or pistol bullets are much heavier projectiles usually, and are either round or closer to round. So either they can't tumble, or if they do, it doesn't slow them down as much. So pistols and shotguns will actually shoot through more layers of drywall than a 5.56 AR-15 will. However,
I did not know that.
I've done some research on it, and the AR-15 is still going to be lethal to the person in the next apartment. It's still going to be, lethal 3 or 4 rooms away with the energy that those rounds have, unless they hit something substantial like furniture. It's an AR-15 penetrates less than a shotgun or a pistol, but I'm not sure if it's so much less that it makes the AR-15 the definitive best choice, because AR-15s also, because they're rifles, and if you're using a short barrel like you would for a home defense gun, you're going to have a lot of muzzle flash, which can blind you. You're going to have an extremely loud report. The sound of the gunshot is going to deafen you, probably much more than a pistol or a shotgun would. So that's something to keep in mind. There's a whole discussion that you can have around this. This is debated within the firearms community on the left and the right.
Oh, yeah.
There's no best option, but those are generally the go-to choices.
I have a question. Do you this is a very noob question. Concealed carry or open carry, assuming it's legal in the jurisdiction you're talking about, like which one do you prefer? Is it kind of like context dependent?
I would only open carry as a political statement or political protest. Concealed, if you are going to carry a firearm for defense, it should be concealed. Wearing a gun visibly for defense makes you a target. It makes it a target for theft if it's a pistol that someone might try to take it out of your holster. If you're at a rally or something with a rifle, if it's on your shoulder, someone can futz with it. If there's a mass shooting and the shooter knows beforehand that you have a gun, that you're going to be a primary target. So if you're going to protect your person in public, I would recommend a concealed carry if you can get one in your jurisdiction, which you can't always. I live just outside of Los Angeles. I live in a county where I can get a concealed carry permit pretty easily. But if I lived 10 miles to the west, I would have zero chance at all. Because LA County only gives concealed carry permits to ex-police officers, private security,
Why am I not surprised?
It's extremely classist, pretty racist. There was a case in LA in the 90s where a woman testified against a drug gang in court, and she requested a concealed carry permit and was denied. And a few days later, the gang did a drive-by shooting and killed her on her front porch. Don't know if a concealed carry would have saved her life, but it might have given her a chance. So it's really unfortunate. Yeah.
So I have another question that maybe you would specifically be able to answer. In regards to now, this is kind of like a trans adjacent question. If you're comfortable with answering any of those questions. Okay, so in American gun culture, a lot of it has to do with masculinity. It's very, very much tied to masculinity. And I know that there's a lot of discussion about masculinity, femininity, that sort of thing within the trans community. So can you maybe give me your opinion on how you think that affects trans individuals and what your general opinion on it is in and of itself?
Yeah, so I think on an individual level, I think there's been a part of the sort of leftist gun culture project is de-gendering gun ownership, saying that, owning a firearm for protection is not inherently masculine or feminine. It's a human drive to want to protect our lives and to protect the people that we care about. And, this idea of men or masculine people as this, sort of protective watchdog mentality, gotta protect the women's sort of, toxic bullshit. It's sort of getting rid of all that and saying that, anyone of any gender should be able to own and carry firearms to defend themselves. The bigger issue that we're having is that there is this sort of strain of toxic masculinity within the left and within a lot of minority communities, where you have people who, who do see firearms ownership as this, they approach it with this masculine mindset of, I want to seem tough, I want to seem prepared, I want to seem like, and I think a lot of people need to be deprogrammed from that, because they often create a unwelcoming environment for gender nonconforming people. They create, often those are the people, the people who have the most masculine, tough guy approach to guns are often the ones who are pushing for, well, why isn't the SRA going out and doing militia actions and pointing guns at cops? And it's like, you are both, your politics and your approach to gender is, with regards to firearms, are both fucked. Please don't.
To put people like me in danger is
exactly.
Is that something you would like to do?
Yeah. Guys, I have to go for a walk now.
Okay.
And I'll see
thanks for coming on. Yeah.
Before we go, I have to apologize to Skylar, because yesterday she made a comment about being a fan of Trevor Noah, and I thought I apologize. I didn't realize you're sarcastic. Very sorry.
No, it's all good. I wasn't clear. I was just being human. It's all good.
But just like half the chat knew it because we know you, so like that, it was obvious.
Yeah. Skylar is a beautiful.
Walter, thanks for coming on. This was actually a pleasant surprise. I didn't even know we were going to get graced again, so that was great.
I couldn't resist. Yeah. And thanks for letting me do such a fabulous group of people. Fantastic.
Yeah, this is great.
It's been nice talking to you.
Carry on,
sure, Walter.
Solidarity.
Yeah, thanks so much, Walter. Faye, I actually wanted to ask you, going back to, I'm pretty sure it was Aaron asked it, about kind of gun safety in general, but specifically, sorry, is it how much of an actual danger? So, like anyone who's watching right now is like, oh, yeah, I think I should go buy a gun. How much of an actual danger is it? Not just from like accident, improper use and shooting yourself, but for example, if you have a gun. And especially if you're like a black person and you're pulled over by police, what kind of dangers are there that they need to be cognizant of if they decide to purchase a firearm, that outside risk that they put themselves into?
So as far as like owning firearms in general, I don't think there's too much inherent risk to that, aside from, accidents and suicides, for instance. But I do think there is an issue with concealed carry, especially if you are a black person in America or any sort of visible minority. That carrying a gun on your person basically gives police a pretext excuse to murder you. They might murder you with or without a gun, but if you have a gun on your person, whether that's legally owned or not, that can be used to justify their actions after the fact. We saw this with the murder of Philando Castile, I believe by the Minneapolis Police Department. It was definitely in Minnesota. I believe it was Minneapolis PD. Completely legal concealed carrier with a license on him, still murdered by the police. So that's sort of an inherent risk. If you are a minority, that is something that you have to take into account. Do you want to be a concealed carrier? And that's also sort of why the SRA pushes the idea of community defense. Not everyone needs to be responsible for their own defense at all times. Instead, having, other people who you can rely on, who you can call upon to defend yourself in certain situations.
Yeah, the gun license too.
Yeah. And so
completely legal. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you sort of take the approach of, with community defense, saying, well, because carrying a concealed weapon may put you in danger as a black person or as a member of another minority, because being a concealed carrier may put you in danger, instead we'll build solidarity and build groups of people who are armed, who can defend you in situations like protests where you are at greater risk of being shot. And having that sort of not having the full burden of self-defense placed on those individuals solely. And I think that is a good way to sort of approach the issue if you don't feel comfortable concealed carrying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a very good point. I think that guns and all different forms of self protection and community protection in general, um, I personally believe are very necessary. But I think that's a very good point that a lot of people kind of gloss over, don't really pay attention to, is that not everyone needs to have one. That it's a community defense.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a very important thing to point out. While we're here, I want to. So I also contacted the Mid-Missouri John Brown Gun Club. Unfortunately, they weren't able to make it, but they did leave me with a message of solidarity to read with everybody. So I'll read that right now, if that's okay. It says,
Sounds good.
"The Mid-Missouri John Brown Gun Club stands in solidarity with anti-fascist prisoners held captive throughout the world. They remind us that the fascist onslaught we face in 2020 demands action. All skills are needed. Activate at home, and you will find other abolitionists and anti-fascists nearby. Join an existing group or start your own initiative. Ideology or tendency matters much less than kindred spirit and shared liberatory goals. Start a mutual aid project, a free weekly meal, a break light clinic, a neighborhood distribution event. COVID demands more creativity, but creativity is exactly what can and must flourish to counter fascist decay while we build a new world in the shell of the old. Make connections and create coalitions. Understand the needs and gaps within our community, within your own community. Organize within your own neighborhoods. This is where revolution awaits. Love and solidarity, the Mid-Missouri John Brown Gun Club."
Nice.
I couldn't have said it better. That's excellent.
Yeah. And that, I think that's a giant difference between the kind of the right talking point for guns and the left talking points for guns. Is the rights it's very individualistic. First of all, it's this is my right. It's all about I default get it. Which is a very privileged take, or very what's the idea? What do they always call, like, the snowflakes? They're very entitled. It's a very entitled take.
Yeah.
I am entitled to this right. It's mine to protect myself, versus the left is a necessary thing. It doesn't even matter if I'm entitled or if it's a right that I get. It's I won't say unfortunate necessity, but it is a necessity, and that's the biggest. That's what comes first, is that it's something we have to use.
Exactly. Like,
for the community.
I don't enjoy thinking about, whether or not to risk trying to own a firearm, despite the fact that I might get kicked out of my, when I am thinking about that, shit is really going down, but at the same exact time, we need to try to make sure that we just remember that we didn't want this, but at the same exact time,
it's something that has to be done. Yeah,
you need to protect your life. Yeah. You can't do a revolution if you're dead.
Yes.
Sharky, can I ask, so you can't own a firearm because it would endanger your living situation with regards to parents or a college dormitory?
Mm-hmm.
My recommendation would be to not purchase a firearm at this time, because, you can't do a revolution if you're dead. It's also a lot harder to do a revolution if you're homeless. So in that situation, again, community defense, having comrades that you can turn to who can defend you in those sorts of situations. And so it might be worthwhile for you to reach out to the Socialist Rifle Association.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of doing that, because at our last in-person meeting of my IWW branch, we had someone from the Northern New Jersey SRA.
Yeah, and so I'm not familiar with the Northern New Jersey chapter, but I know the New York chapter and the Philly chapter are both really good groups. And so I'd recommend reaching out to them. You don't need a gun to join the SRA. You don't need even to be a member to attend a training event if it's a public event. And, being able to go and try out a couple firearms at the range, learn some fundamental skills.
Interested in that. Yeah,
absolutely.
I more want to learn gun safety and, basic stuff, because am very unsure whether I'm going to be able to own a firearm in the near future, but I want it, in case shit really hits the fan and or shit even more really hits the
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would still say like that even if shit really hits the fan, that yeah, that I would say it's still, even with that though, there's plenty of reason to want individual protection, like in your home invasion, and especially if shit fits the hand. Shit hits the fan. But I would also say that but that first and foremost, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Faye, like the community aspect of that is going to be the most important thing if shit hits the fan on a political and revolutionary aspect anyways.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have one, that's still okay.
That's sort of... Go ahead.
I would like to join the Socialist Revolution. Socialist Rifle Association, which I just recently moved to a more convenient area within the metropolitan area that I believe has the Socialist Rifle Association, whereas before I lived way too far to properly attend the Socialist SRA gatherings. So I feel like I'm able to be a part of it and contribute, and I actually have a job now. So what can I do?
Yeah, so to join the SRA, generally you can join the national organization at socialistra.org/membership. It's $25 per year. It's that's cheaper than DSA or IWW or the NRA for that matter. It might be more expensive than IWW student dues, but you can join the national organization and they'll put you in touch with your chapter. Most chapters have their own vetting process and onboarding process just to weed out anyone who is, maybe a fascist infiltrator or someone who is reactionary. Don't necessarily, the goal isn't to train everybody, it's to train leftists and members of vulnerable minorities. So once you get onboarded with your chapter, show up to a meeting, which is a little dicey right now because of COVID, but most chapters in normal times will do range days and education meetings, at least on a weekly or bi-weekly schedule, or at the very least monthly if it's a smaller group. And,
I understand.
Yeah.
That sounds cool. I definitely try to work on my reactionary behavior, and then also I practice sanitization when I can. So I don't think I have COVID. I've been tested a couple of times, so I should be able to sign up when I can. So I'll do that when I'll be able to sign up for sure.
Nice.
Great.
And when you join the national org, it used to be automatic. Now you have to specifically request it, but you do get the fancy membership card. Shiny.
Another red card. Awesome.
Exactly.
I'll have two red cards then.
I love seeing the IWW SRA cards photographed together.
Nice.
They usually have a Marx quote on the back. I was in leadership, so I got a special Rosa Luxemburg one. But
Okay.
Nice. Very cool.
All power to the workers and soldiers' councils, baby.
Awesome.
Faye, one more question. And it sounds like I'm harping on it, but I guess it's
Nice.
one thing that I worry that a lot of people already on the left who are interested in guns. I just want everyone to be as safe as possible and be as efficient as possible.
Yes.
So one more thing about safety is basically going off of what the last thing I asked, which how to keep yourself safe with potential harms of just having a gun. Are there any? You talked about whether you should or should not, based on these ideas. What are if someone decides, okay, I'm going to get a gun? Are there any tactics or any tips someone might have to stay safe in the realm of for example, Bo of the Fifth Column had a great video on when he was training cops about things like tunnel vision and panic with if they are faced with a police officer or if they're faced with a home invader or a fascist or someone. Is there any do you have any tips? Are there any tips that kind of can mitigate those emotions and those phenomena that take over in a dangerous situation?
Yeah, if you are in an encounter and you get that fight or flight response, unfortunately, that's not something that I personally have as much experience with. I haven't, I've been assaulted a couple times, but never in a life or death scenario. So I can't speak to that as much. That would be a question for the SRA education director, who is a certified concealed carry instructor who is working on our curriculum. So I could throw out some general statements, but I don't know if they would be fully correct. So I don't want to speak on that in particular.
Well, I think some good information you just said then, though, is what you're saying is if people want to join the SRA, there are training modules. There's information for that. So that's really good.
Yeah, we are working on it. Originally, the SRA was going to partner with another group that does firearms education, and we would essentially teach their curriculum under our banner. The workers of that company were perfectly happy to work with us, but as soon as the management and investors found out, they terminated the relationship. So the SRA is now developing its own in-house curriculum. It's not complete yet, but hopefully by next year there will be a full curriculum for basic firearms instruction within the SRA. As it stands, most chapters focus on teaching the fundamentals and accumulating information from various sources with advice from our education director.
I have a question here. Okay, so I don't really know if this is something that you guys do, but does the SRA work to try to get more people involved in the SRA? Like, do you have like any kind of online campaigns or ground activity, that sort of thing going on?
The SRA has never had an issue with recruitment. The name alone and just our existence and the stances that we take is, to put it this way, the SRA, just from the beginning of this year to the present, has grown from 3,000 members to over 7,500.
Wow.
It's now probably the second largest socialist organization in the United States after DSA. The Communist Party USA may or may not be larger, but it's substantial. And too much growth can be a bad thing. It's the SRA has had to really expand its infrastructure really quickly to handle this huge influx of people. But I think the organization's doing an okay job considering the situation with COVID and the uprisings. It's a lot going on, but there's never been an issue with drawing people to the SRA simply by the fact that we are educating people, doing mutual aid, doing training, just the mere fact that we exist, and that this is an option. There's such a hunger for this sort of training and education already that as soon as people find out that we exist, a lot of people join.
Yeah, very cool. I love it. It kind of sells the name. It sells itself right in the name. Like, what is this? The social? Tell you what. So someone had a comment in the chat, which I don't subscribe to 100%, but I figured I'd let you talk about it if there's validity to this or what issues there might be. Says, isn't de-escalation, de-engaging, and running away your best weapons against fascists in order to keep yourself safe?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, if you can avoid a violent confrontation, you often should. But at the same time, you do have the fact that we do have fascist street gangs. We have groups like the Proud Boys, Patriot Prayer, who go into the street, and if you don't confront them, they just hunt down vulnerable people on their own and attack them, and assault them when they can't run away. And so if you believe in anti-fascism, in disrupting fascist street activity, then there is, people who are going to choose to engage in violence with fascists to disrupt their street activities. In that case, those people should not carry guns, but they should have friends nearby who do, in case that situation escalates beyond a fist fight or throwing water bottles or whatever. There is that, I have a couple books here that I wanted to plug later, but I'll bring this one up now. This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed by Charles E. Cobb Jr.
Yeah, that was great.
which is about the role of firearms in the sort of civil rights movement. And one of the things that is brought up in that book is the fact that there would be, pacifist, nonviolent protests of people simply sitting down and allowing themselves to be beaten by racists. However, often in those situations, there would be people, Black people or allies nearby with guns to step in if things got too far out of hand. And also, many civil rights leaders had guns and had, friends and comrades with guns to help defend them when they would be, targeted. MLK Jr. Would frequently have a shotgun in every corner of the house in case he was attacked, and would have armed bodyguards. Because when you get into activism, when you are doing things in the real world, you become a target for fascists and other people, and you need that ability to defend yourself. So if you can avoid violence, if your activism is not violent, anti-fascism, which is valid in many cases. If that's not your praxis, then running away is often the best option. But if you are cornered, you need a means to defend yourself.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you're there for. Are you there as a bystander who's been accosted or gotten into a bad situation? Then yeah, I have I used to take jiu-jitsu for self-defense, or Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and yeah, the absolute most the highest priority is just avoiding the conflict if you can.
Yes.
But if you're out there as anti-fascist, as doing doing activism, then it depends on you. You're gauging the danger of the situation, of course. But yeah, you're out there to have some form of conflict, even if it's just a verbal or confrontational, some type of confrontation, I should say. So yeah, running away might not be exactly, it's counterproductive.
Like if you want to defend yourself from tear gas, you can either run away or you can bring a shield and a leaf blower. Those are both valid choices. It depends on what you're there for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I haven't promoted it in a while, and we haven't gotten a donation in almost an hour, in 49 minutes, folks. I don't know. It's getting harder and harder to donate shame people, because it's just gotten so high now.
Well, don't you want it to be even higher, people? I mean, come on. But don't you want line to go up? Line going up is
line
good.
Must go. This line is good when it goes up for everyone.
The only thing holding me back is the fact that it's got that 1312 in there,
Oh yeah. Well, you have to donate an equivalent amount to get it to maybe
you can get
161 to 161. Yeah. There you go. Someone do the math and donate that. Remember, we are giving away 2 amazing T-shirts at the end of this stream, right here. These were designed by a former anti-fascist former inmate.
Those are really cool.
They're really cool. So yeah, we'll do a drawing in like the last 15 minutes of the stream later, and everyone who donates will get 1 entry. So yeah, get up on that. I've already given away a pack of stickers. Camazot's Altars has said anyone who donates $5 or more will get a $10 discount from their store for their T-shirts. So yeah, hit that up. And all this goes to an amazing cause, to supporting anti-fascist prisoners who are suffering for doing work to protect others and to protect you and me. So the least we can do is be here to help them. Even if you can't donate monetarily, I'll put in the chat again. There is here's a list of the people that we're helping and their addresses, or the addresses they can be mailed at in prison. If you have $0, you can't put anything out. Signal boost, spread this out, as well as write to them. Hold writing parties, which is something I never occurred to me, but you can get a meetup with if you're in a Socialist Rifle Association chapter or an IWW chapter or something like that. Talk to them about doing a meetup where everyone writes letters. These are like, if you're doing these 11 prisoners, maybe each one of you writes a letter to each prisoner, and if you have a group of 20 people, I mean, that means every single one of them is getting 20 letters. That's going to be so impactful to them.
Yeah. Also, this is only tangentially related, but I actually did just think of something just safety wise during these uncertain times. Do you mind if I share it?
Sure.
Oh, if you can, try to cultivate, emergency contacts in your area. Like for instance, in my case, I am relying financially upon my parents, but I do have enough independence that I am planning on going to say in the future I plan on doing some thing that isn't necessarily legal or whatever. That we need to have emergency contacts that we can just like people in our local group that we can rely on to make sure, hey, I'm doing this at this time. If I don't come back at or text you at this time, please like contact my. I mean, I feel as though everyone should do that, really, especially with situations with abductions in Portland and all that continued shit.
Build an affinity group. Meet some know your neighbors.
Yes, very, very important. Faye, I have another question for you. So there are a lot of people that are fresh socialists who used to be liberals, who believe that the only way to solve gun violence is to ban all guns and that sort of thing. What do you say to those kinds of people?
We got another dono, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I would say that's great. Can you find a way to confiscate 350 million firearms from the American public without having, enforcing that with massive federal confiscation? Right. And can you explain how that confiscation will not unevenly target the poor and Black communities? Can you explain how this will not lead to federal agents bursting into immigrants' homes, taking their firearms, and then using it as a reason to deport them? Any sort of gun control that relies on the existing American state is fundamentally going to be, it's fundamentally going to, its enforcement will fundamentally involve all of the same racist and colonialist and fascist tendencies that our government already has. If after we solve the issue of America, once we solve that issue, maybe we can talk about disarmament. Maybe we can have that conversation. But as long as the police have guns, as long as racist militias have guns, as long as right-wing nut jobs have dozens of guns that they can pass out to their racist friends if shit hits the fan, and the left is relatively weak in comparison, as long as that's the case, I don't think that having feds and cops go into minority communities to disarm people is going to help the situation. I think it will make things worse. And, we can talk about an ideal society. If you could remove all the guns, maybe that would be great. I don't know, but that's not the society that we have.
Yeah, and Marx even wrote, which of course, obviously, the quote we just read, that Marx was definitely in favor of guns, and any attempt to take them must be frustrated by force if necessary. But he also wrote about, in a post-colonial, post-capitalist world, kind of post-revolution, that if the guns are not needed, they wouldn't be, in kind of his envision. I can't remember what book it was I read this in, or what essay, but he said they would most likely be stored away. If they are no longer needed, they pose a risk. That actually it's not pro-gun, it's pro-protection and pro-necessity. So once they are not necessary, unless it's like some, you figure out a way of sports shooting or something, whatever.
Yeah.
But they would be stored away in case they were ever needed again. But the whole point is, it's not that it's just because it's our right. It's because it's a necessity.
Just to comment on that, one idea that has been fostered by many people within the SRA, one way to approach gun ownership in a post-capitalist society is the idea of community armories. And those could operate differently depending on what your vision of socialism is. Is this controlled by a socialist state? Is this, libertarian socialist municipal control? Is it totally anarchist? Whatever your implementation is, the idea that militarily relevant arms are kept under lock and key, but are accessible to working class people who can then use those guns to defend their community, to defend themselves in the event of a military situation, or of something like a hostage situation or mass shooting or those sorts of environments. Having the community be able to defend itself and to have those arms available, but not having them out among the general population at all times. And I think that's a good middle ground. But depending on the implementation, people may or may not agree. I certainly wouldn't, personally, I wouldn't agree with like a state-controlled community armory. But if that's your flavor of socialism, then
Hey,
we're not there yet.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Faye. I first of all, I want to say it's nice to meet you. I've watched you on American Johnson's stream, and
Nice.
it's nice to meet you.
Nice
I've
to meet you too.
actually endorsed the Socialist Rifle Association on my YouTube channel a couple times, so I want to say that like I support you. And then I do have to go after I ask you this question, because I this has been on my mind lately. But like the question is that like there's gonna be a like a Black Lives Matter rally in Portland, and like I imagine there's gonna be like some like counter protesters, like Blue Lives Matter people, like there too, like some fascists and Proud Boys, like, and there's gonna be like there's gonna be some feds, there. Should like the Socialist Rifle Association be there too? I don't know. What do you think? Should there be like some like people like open carry and things like that too?
So two sort of aspects to that. First, the Socialist Rifle Association doesn't do street actions. However, SRA members are free to be members of other organizations or, to do their own activism outside the SRA. I'm sure that many SRA members are involved in these protests already. But the issue in Portland, Portland has banned open carry within its city limits, and has also put some heavier restrictions on concealed carry. I've heard conflicting reports about whether it's completely banned or not. I haven't fully read the local laws, but it's more difficult to conceal carry than it was a couple years ago. So I think that as far as firearms, I don't think that there should be any sort of left-wing armed march unless there's a specific situation where people are willing to break that law for a political statement.
Right.
And that's a decision that community will have to make itself.
I understand. And then one more question I have, like, it's mainly about the election, and I'm not trying to bring up electoral politics. It's just because like if Joe Biden wins or Donald Trump wins, like they're like people of color are gonna lose their right to bear arms, and that they're the most likely to win. Like, but I'm just like worried that like that's what I've been thinking about, and I'm just worried about like the future, and it's just like I don't know, like we should be mobilizing at this point,
Well, it depends on what you mean by mobilizing. As far as the electoral stuff, it's a rock and a hard place. Trump versus Biden, I'm leaving the top of the ballot blank, just voting for down ballot progressives.
Oh, I'm voting for Howie Hawkins.
Yeah, I mean, you can vote for the Green Party if you like. I don't have any issue with that. But it is an issue. Trump is a threat to minority communities in all the ways that we know, and probably new ones that he hasn't thought up yet. Biden his gun control plan is pretty egregious, and it's pretty squarely aimed at working class people. There are essentially workarounds, loopholes for rich people to bypass all of the laws that he's proposed, of course. It's neither of them is really good. I can't endorse either of them.
Right.
Mobilizing against that, the SRA will probably, it's so far refrained from engaging in electoral politics, but if Biden wins the election, I expect, again, I'm not in leadership now, but I expect that the SRA will start to do some electoral work, lobbying politicians, not with donations, because
I don't want you to lobby with politicians.
But not like that, but like trying to influence them, making statements, sending out mailers to influential people, AOC, for
asserting
instance.
public pressure. Yeah,
exactly.
Oh yeah,
just to make sure, no one's done this, but just because we're approaching that territory. The topic is on community defense, which is completely legal.
Yes.
and not over any. We are not talking of or endorsing or denouncing any form of insurrectionary work, just because that's not
adventurism could get people like me killed.
Well, and also
that's not what I'm saying.
talking other things could get you.
Just the language used can get hairy.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is that we need to like be on the defense because like I'm just worried about what's happening in the future. You know.
Yeah.
There's.
I think people need to start taking defense very seriously, if that's a clear enough way to say it.
I have no idea what's going on in the future, but I'm confident that people will be better off armed than unarmed.
Yeah.
I want to.
Anyway, I that's all I wanted to say on here. So anyway, I'll see you later.
Thanks for coming on, Skylar.
Thank you.
It's
great to talk
Have
to
a
you.
good one.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Solidarity.
Bye. All right. So first of all, yes, we got another donation from Irish Polak to boost us even more. Thank you so much. Of $19.78. Line must go up. Line go up good. Praise the line. And by the way, pronouns are she, her. If I misgendered you, I'm so sorry. It's we're all working on decolonizing our minds, and it's not an excuse, but I want you to know it wasn't intentional, and I'll be more careful of it.
If you did, I didn't hear it, but thank you. But yeah.
Now, something else I want to mention is in the chat earlier. Now, everyone, please be nice. But someone in the chat was, and some people have talked about it in the chat. But this is a good topic to bring up, and some people are new to these concepts, and that's why we're here. That's why we're talking publicly about these things. So, Jackie Nyancat says, "Sounds like there isn't a big reason to bear arms for you, but if it, oh wait, sorry, that's Larice Ruth. I meant to hit the one of Jackie Nyancat. Sorry." That's the response. Jackie Nyancat says, "See, I'm only 16, but in the UK, we have what I deem a good gun regulations. So gun crime is often rare here. And community policing and actually talking and meeting my police forces and knowing they're not always against me often makes me disinclined to ever want to bear an arm. I guess what I'm asking is why bear arms if you trust the forces and institutions to handle?" So I would say,
I don't.
And yeah, exactly. And I know we're very American centric in this conversation, but I also know some about England, and I know plenty of British socialists who would disagree with that, and that's okay to have that understanding. As long as I'm assuming you're here to learn more. But I would say you should never fully trust any institution, even if it's a really good one. You should never fully trust them. You should always be asking, like, okay, they're doing this, and what else are they doing? If you see a lot of community policing and actual like community involvement, that's a good step, but that doesn't justify the institution, and it doesn't justify the other atrocities, the other dangers that they put the community in.
The police are one tool among many that the state can use to oppress its population, and they can be deployed by different countries in different ways. In the UK, if you are, a white British person, if you're not exceptionally poor, then you may well have a decent relationship with your local police. But then ask how poor Middle Eastern and North African immigrants are treated by the police. Yeah. Ask how Irish people were treated by the police during the Troubles, and you'll see that the police can be a very
Ask how most Jews like me have been treated for most of history.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if I can add too, it's like the other thing too is even if you blindly, completely trust everything that your government says, what happens when the next person comes in? And that person might not be as easily trustable. You know what I'm saying?
What happens when Britain gets its Trump? Boris Johnson is in that direction, but he's not the same. But
yeah.
I
interrupted Silver Spook when I said that. My bad.
I haven't said anything, so I should probably say something. But hey, everybody. So as the resident person of color, fuck the police. Generally speaking, I was just kind of thinking, I don't really know where exactly. I can say I would agree with all the points about I've witnessed police kill people, and it's terrible. I've witnessed people my skin color kill each other, and it's terrible too. And so I have to say, I always, obviously, for all the reasons that we're saying, right, we have to be able to defend ourselves. At the same time, I'm always worried because I've seen what gun violence can do in the hands of 14-year-old meth dealers who have no other option except to shoot each other and sell meth to make enough money to pay for their, you know, their exorbitant rents. And also I've seen police do horrible things to those same people. And it's disgusting. I will agree with this. America as a country, somebody who has directly fought the US military and the United States police and its militarized police and all of its fucking aircraft, including B-52H Stratofortresses, which they bombed their fucking mountain with. But I mean, kind of all kidding aside, I do think that like, just like it is important that we are prepared to defend ourselves. And like, I know in this community here where we are on the Big Island of Hawaii, which I would say is the least colonized areas, like we have twice the rate of veterans of the United States military here. There is a very well, I'm not going to say who it is, but there's very well organized non-police entities, let's put it that way, who are prepared to do a lot of things. We have a lot of different people here from a lot of different backgrounds, and we have varieties of ways of defending ourselves. There are a lot of weapons. There are a lot of weapons. We have a lot of gun ownership, but it's important. It's very important, I will say, to just having guns. I want to kind of echo what was said earlier. Like, having guns does not equal defense. Having guns can actually disempower you. I've seen people, you know, I've talked to kids who are like literally like, I'm gonna be Ice Cube. I am the next. I'm what's up, right? And I'm like, do you see all of your friends from Grave Street, the ones you're trying to be, even in Honolulu, Hawaii? They're not even not all black, but they buy into that kind of culture. And you know, you're 10 times more likely to be killed if you're black or brown in a ghetto in the United States. And that's why I was a social worker trying to stop these kids from killing each other and going to prison for the rest of their life, making fucking Amazon Whole Foods vegan and non-vegan goat cheese for 25 cents an hour, or putting out California's wildfires, right? Or making the guns that the Portland police are going to use to shoot up their protesters in a prison for the rest of their life. And so at the same time, it's like, it's as important to like be very trained. It's train your mind, train your body, train your spirit, know your community. Like, and it's materially different in the super colonized parts of Honolulu, Hawaii. That's where Waikiki in the city is. It's very much, it's like Oakland or New Jersey in the tropics. It's what it is. It's a shithole. I hate it. It's like they're the highest concentration of billionaires on the planet live right in my neighborhood, like right up the mountain, and all of their chromium-6 filled tap water, all of their fracking, all of their industrial waste is like giving my family cancer right now.
Yeah, that is a lot like a lot of places in New Jersey where the wealth and income disparity between like 5 miles outside of of Newark, you're getting into the suburbs of New York, and you have some of the richest people in the country. Kids that I went to school with, you know, so I do know. And now Newark is like Flint, Michigan. It's a majority black city, and they have no fucking water.
Yeah, I forgot the water.
It's highly gentrified.
Yeah, the water I'm drinking actually is full of chromium-6. So, and that's just fine. They're gonna leave it like that, and it's all fine. Yeah. Smells like burning plastic. It's great. And the kids, you know, like actually the kids where I'm from, they lived in housing that literally it hasn't had hot water for like 8 years, and it basically will never. And the water smells like burning plastic now. So that's going to keep happening. So in Honolulu, that's not just Honolulu. That's Honolulu. That's Seattle. That's parts of Tacoma, parts of LA, parts of, you know, I mean, it's all over the place. So, you know, it's very important, like, that people get educated, get properly trained, like, get your mind in the correct place. Not in the correct place, but just get educated, get empowered, like, read. Like, don't read CNN and don't read anything that comes out of it. Don't listen to any of the news. You know, like this is what I tried to do in the ghetto. They listen to Kanye West. They would rap it to my face, and I'd be like, it's time to learn about math and reading. And they're all like in my face. You know, this is not what time it is. You want to go do that? Like, you got the whole rest of the United States to get yourself murdered in. You want to kill each other? You get out of my fucking classroom. That's why I kind of like, I have this feeling. It's like there's a lot of toxic stuff there. There's a toxic patriarchal tendencies and a lot of just the most, they're like lumpen proletariat, you know? And it's just like, that is hard ass work. So when people say, oh, we're going to take the police and turn them into social workers, I'm like, motherfucker, are you ready for this? You ready to be Silver Spook? And anyway, it's not as fun as fucking freedom riders and step up to the streets with Antonio Banderas dancing his way into liberating all the children. You know, it ain't as fun as that. Let me put it out. It's fucking hard work. It's dangerous work sometimes. So, but anyway, I'm losing my train of thought. So the main thing is on Mauna Kea, we had U.S. military veterans. Uncle Walter Riddy is a Native Hawaiian Vietnam War veteran, is trained by the United States military, killed people that in Vietnam, right? And then he later on realized I was on the wrong side of this. I should have been supporting the socialists over there. And then he later fought against the U.S. Empire when they were bombing on one of our islands, Kaho'olawe, cracking the water table, destroying our environment on a Native Hawaiian island. He was in the 70s there when it was illegal to speak Hawaiian. It's still illegal to speak Hawaiian, and it sucks. And so we're fighting it. And these people they know how to shoot guns. They know how to operate tanks. They know how to some of them know how to operate aircraft and AC-130s. They can fire the 50 caliber. They can shoot Hellfire missiles. They know what they're doing. And they're like, when we are doing this operation, the most important thing is the first thing you need. Our weapon here is knowledge, first and foremost. And we are doing this action. I'm talking about specifically defending Mauna Kea, the sacred mountain here in the Big Island of Hawaii. We live on the Big Island, which is the place of Papa, the Earth Mother, and Wakea, the Sky Father, from which all life. It's a long story. Basically, it's a very sacred place. It's like Mecca or a cathedral. And you're bombing our mountain. You're desecrating it without our prior and informed consent of the indigenous people. You're in violation of state and federal laws. Basically, like last year, we said enough's enough, and we're gonna physically stop. Well, not just last year. For the last 5 years, we've been fighting it. And this is enough's enough. You're not gonna be up here again. And they said, but we're gonna do this with no weapons. Not even a baseball bat. Not a gun. Not a knife. Not a mace. Nothing. Not even a brass knuckle. I don't want a Hello Kitty pepper spray. Nothing. No weapons. No drugs. No alcohol. We're in kapu aloha, sacred ceremonial practice, because in this moment, right, because we have our most important weapon. This is what Dr. Cannon said. He's like, my job was to overthrow socialism. My job was to destroy democracy for the benefit of the military-industrial complex, Lockheed Martin and Jeff Bezos' billions that he's working with Amazon Web Services. My job was to do this. And let me tell you, the most important thing is to be able to project power in a situation. You have to understand the historical context. You have to understand your present situation. You have to be mentally prepared, because when they start sawing Hawaiian flags in half, when they start demolishing your Hawaiian library with your books, you have to be able to control yourself, your mind and your body in that situation of chaos. And what they want to do is they want you to lash out and attack the police physically. They want you to attack because that will justify what comes next, which is we don't have to just drop the bomb 6 miles from me anymore. We can tar and feather you in the media. We can destroy the optics of what you've built, everything that you've built. And because they were lying about us, they're saying, oh, these Native Hawaiians, they're a bunch of filthy, smelly little N-words of the Pacific. You're savages. You're not sacred protesters. You're not defending anything. You're just partying on that mountain, and you should go back to your little ghetto. They didn't say specifically those words, but that's what they implied with all the dog whistles. That's what he said. The governor of the state of Hawaii. And we said, you are a liar. And you are telling lies. We are not violent. We are not defecating on our mountain. We have porta potties. There is no trash, not a single piece. I've been up there several times, and I never found a piece of trash because everybody's cleaning everything up. And everyone was in lockstep. Nobody's armed, nobody's fighting, nobody's drinking, nobody's doing any drugs of any kind. Nothing is happening. And we had video evidence, and there was no way. There was no way, and they were trying to get video or something of us trying to provoke something, right? Something to show to all of their white racist Americans who occupy Honolulu and who control the capitalists and the government and the businesses in Hawaii, that these are the savages that you thought, and try to bring, and that was part of the strategy, right? So this is a it was a longer term strategy of now that's for our situation. I'm not saying that's not every situation, but again, it's first and foremost, the knowledge and the consciousness of your mind is your most important weapon. Having a gun without having the knowledge, without having the history, right? Which is what I didn't have. When I grew up with no Hawaiian history. I was taught you're an American, put your hand over your heart. So the knowledge is the most important tool. And then the community organization, like we're saying. And guess what? We have defeated a $1.6 billion capitalist corporate project, the 30-meter telescope, in collaboration with Intel Corporation, one of the fifth richest, top 10 richest people in the world and more. University of California system. Gianna Napolitano, ex-Homeland Security Director. Justin Trudeau, horrible Canadian. So shout out to Lottie Blix. Fuck Canada and your fake white. You three oil companies in a trench coat with a stupid hat, carrying a gun, doing blackface.
Fuck Canada.
Fuck Canada. And, Japan and India have already pulled out. So let me just say, so we have had a material victory here. We are pushing back capitalism. We're pushing back against tourism. We're now electoral, our people are moving into the government. Nice. But that's kind of secondary to the mass decolonization of all of our minds. It used to be 4% of Hawaii identified as Hawaiian, and 96% basically identified as we're all American now, right? We're all American. Now your skin color is like this. Your history, your blood, your blood, but I mean your family, your culture, your kupuna, that's your elders, your aloha aina, your kuleana, your responsibility. Everything is still there, but you just denied it. Very sad, very sad. So, but our generation and the younger generation, we are decolonizing ourselves, and that weapon of the knowledge, the true history is I think is so critical. And then when you're capable of directing and acting in the world. Power is not the power is not the caliber of a rifle. It's not a 50 caliber or a 200 caliber or a nuclear bomb or a gun or whatever, or a gunship or 300 gunships. Power is the capacity to make your will, whether that's an individual like a billionaire or a mass of people through the mass line or through these other things, or through a decolonizing Hawaiian population, right? And it's not that you should, and we are trained. Like not every single person specifically, but there are people that we are trained in. A lot of us, and enough of them are in the use of weapons of violence, right? But there are other weapons and there are other tools, information.
Can I interject real quick? I need to get going in the next like 5-10 minutes.
Okay, yeah. Actually, I'm done. I'm just going.
That's all right. I want to say that I really appreciate a lot of the things that you said because I think they're very important. Yeah. One of the big inspirations for me with the Socialist Rifle Association was the Black Panthers and the fact that they took, defending their community beyond just having guns and confronting cops, and went beyond it to education, to feeding hungry children, to having all these workshops and mutual aid programs within the structure of the Black Panthers, which was just as impactful or more impactful than the guns themselves. And that's something that should always be understood, that firearms are a tool, and you need to, as a part of your strategy, as a part of your tactics, decide how and where you are going to use firearms to advance the goals of your project, whether that's anti-fascist, decolonial, socialist, anarchist, whatever. You need to figure out how do firearms fit into your praxis, if they do at all. And, firearms ownership, just promoting everyone to own guns in general is a really bad idea if you don't pair that with education, if you don't pair that with a healthy gun culture that treats firearms as a deadly tool, as a weapon, which needs to be respected as a weapon. And so I think that's very important. And I think that, anyone who wants to get into left-wing firearms ownership should look into the Black Panthers. Not a perfect organization, but they did a lot of things right. And I think that understanding their approach to community defense is really fundamental to what I did with co-founding the SRA. Before I log off here, a couple things. First, an organization that I had on my podcast last month, relatively recent organization just getting off the ground, is the Latino Rifle Association. The founder of that group is actually moving to the Big Island. So maybe he can hook in with y'all, stand in solidarity with the Mauna Kea protests, which, by the way, are a fantastic example of community action. One of the best actions in the United States, in recent memory, in my opinion. But I can maybe put him in touch with y'all later. Aside from that, read This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed. Read Revolutionary Suicide by Huey P. Newton. Understand these concepts of community defense and how they've been applied in the past. And if you want to get armed and trained, if you want to, be prepared for either home defense or using firearms in a political fashion, definitely check out the Socialist Rifle Association for, education and training and, finding a community of like-minded people. But thank you so much, everybody, for having me on. Solidarity.
Thank you for coming on. And there's been just a ton of good information in this last hour or so.
Agreed.
Thanks for coming on. And I definitely, I think it's very important for everyone to learn to defend yourself or defend your community in one way or another. I'll leave you. You may have seen this image, but I'll leave you with this before you go. Which,
nice.
Yeah.
Just gotta jump over the liberal gap, and you get your.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just tiptoe past the
I love
centrists.
that.
Yeah.
I love that.
All right, everybody. Solidarity. Have a good one.
Solidarity.
Thank you so much.